Hey, everybody. Jim Ackerlin here from Cannasure. We appreciate your attendance and hopeful for some good participation as we introduce the newest wrinkle to our MGA program. So as you guys know, we have a full service operation here at Cannasure, but within the MGA specifically, we have property and casualty coverages, and we are now dipping our toe into the world of management liability. So we have added officially, as we finish up this webinar today, the ability to have cyber liability embedded in the MGA policy. We're using Tokio Marine HCC as our partner, and they will jump into the presentation in a second to share all the wonderful coverages and exciting opportunities to be part of this kind of expansion of the MGA program, as well as share what happens if there is a claim and provide some coverage scenarios and kind of the logistics. So we won't leave you high and dry, but effectively starting immediately, you'll see the ability to have $100,000 of cyber liability coverage within the MGA program as an assumed coverage. So you and your customers will have to opt out of coverage to not have this additional coverage that's embedded in the program. There's a very slight additional premium. I think it's $195. So it's very affordable to get everyone kickstarted into the cyber liability space for cannabis, which is unique. As you probably know more than we do, there's the hesitancy to add that next line of coverage in the cannabis space. So this is kind of the gateway drug as we speak. So this gives a chance not only to add coverage, but there's also the ability to add higher limits of coverage in the program. So with that, and we'll speak to that as we go, I would like to kick it off to Susan Doucette from Tokio Marine. I'm going to mute myself and again, appreciate all your support and activity with Cannasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. My name is Susan Doucette. I am the Director of Program Underwriting for Tokio Marine Houston Casualty Company. And for those of you that don't know, Tokio Marine HCC, or TMHCC for short, actually reinsures the cyber coverage for Cannasure. So I'm going to start the presentation right now, and I'm going to be off screen while I do so. Here's our agenda for today on our cyber presentation. We are going to do a bird's eye view of the cyber landscape. We're going to go into an overview of the Cannasure cyber liability insurance coverage. We're actually going to go into each insuring agreement, and we're going to illustrate those insuring agreements with claim scenarios. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our claims handling process and also how to introduce cyber coverage to your insureds, and then we'll wrap with Here are some eye-opening statistics that give you an idea of how commonplace cyber attacks have become for the business sector. According to the FBI's 2019 Internet Crime Report, reported cyber crimes accounted for over $3.5 billion in total losses. And in 2020, the ITRC, or Identity Theft Resource Center, reported 1,108 US data breaches with over 144 million records impacted. 65% of US organizations experienced a successful phishing attack last year. 88% of organizations faced spear phishing in 2019. 94% of malware incidents were delivered via email, and the average ransom payout was approximately $233,000 per event. And lastly, 75% of companies infected with ransomware were actually running up-to-date endpoint protection. The most common causes of cyber breach are employees' carelessness or negligence, ransomware, rogue employees, employees and their social media, phishing schemes, lost or stolen devices, before and after pictures, and business associate breaches. Negligence and ransomware are actually the top two. Cannasure offers cyber insurance protection as part of their business owner policy. The cyber coverage addresses both first-party events and third-party liability claims for a limit of $100,000 for all states. All classes insured by Cannasure will be eligible for $100,000 limits of cyber coverage on an opt-out basis. Coverage is written on Cannasure paper via endorsement to the CMP policy with a waiver of underwriting. An insured requesting to renew limits of $100,000 can do so at the same limit with no additional underwriting. And all coverage agreements, with the exception of cybercrime, have a $0 deductible. Cybercrime has a $1,000 deductible. And we're going to go into these insuring agreements individually in just a moment. Higher limits up to $1 million are also available, and coverage would be written on HCC paper as a separate policy with its own terms and conditions. Some of the reasons we offer these options are that some people prefer the comfort of higher limits due to the increase of frequency and severity of cyber attacks for business owners. The standard $100,000 cyber coverage endorsement offers simplified access to the higher limits, and we offer a significant discount on higher limits because of the standard coverage. Requests for limits over $100,000 require completion of an application submitted to Cannasure submissions at tmhcc.com. We're going to dive a little deeper into the individual insuring agreements. In this scenario, we have multimedia liability, and multimedia liability is a duty to defend coverage for third-party claims alleging infringement of copyright, trademark, trade name, trade dress, title, slogan, service mark, or service name directly resulting from the dissemination of media material. It covers both electronic and non-electronic media, which is basically online or offline media material. In this scenario, an insured pulls an image from a Google Images web search and uses it on his website and online promotional material. The insured then receives a cease and desist demand letter alleging copyright infringement. The copyright holder of the image demanded removal of the image and compensatory damages. Multimedia insurance covered the cost to defend the claim and the compensatory damage. Security and privacy liability covers third-party claims alleging liability resulting from a security breach or privacy wrongful act, including failure to safeguard online or offline confidential information, or failure to prevent virus attacks, denial of service attacks, or the transmission of malicious code from the insured's computer system to the computer system of a third party. In this scenario, an insured stored client records, including names, dates of birth, and social security numbers onto a flash drive. The insured's laptop and flash drive were stolen from his car. The insured did not take precautions to encrypt or otherwise protect the data stored on the flash drive. And after being notified of the breach, several of his clients sued him for failing to safeguard their personal information. Security and privacy liability insurance covered the defense costs and settlements incurred in the lawsuits. Privacy, regulatory, defense, and penalties. This is coverage for regulatory fines and penalties and regulatory compensatory awards incurred in privacy regulatory proceedings or investigations brought by federal, state, or local government agencies. An insured discovers malware on their point-of-sale devices at several locations. After notifying customers, a complaint was filed with the FTC. The FTC ordered the insured to pay civil fines and penalties for substandard data security practices. Cyber liability insurance covered the defense costs, fines, and penalties incurred in the FTC investigation. PCI DSS Assessment is duty to defend coverage for monetary assessments imposed by banks or credit card companies due to non-compliance with the payment card industry data security standard, PCI DSS, or payment company, card company rules. An insured reported that the payment systems of 3 of its locations had been infected with malware. Forensic investigations following the breach concluded that the owner's point-of-sale terminals at the 3 locations had been compromised, resulting in the theft of sensitive cardholder data when payment cards were swiped through the card reader. Cyber insurance covered the assessments levied against the owner by credit card companies for failure to maintain proper security controls as required by the payment card industry data security standard. TCPA Defense. This is coverage for defense of claims alleging violation of the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, the Telemarketing and Consumer Fraud and Abuse Prevention Act, the Can-Spam Act, or any other similar federal, state, local, or foreign law regulating the use of telephonic or electronic communications for solicitation purposes. As part of its new debt collection program, a small business implemented a new automatic telephone dialing system to contact customers and leave pre-recorded voicemail messages concerning outstanding balances. Several customers filed a class action complaint alleging that the telephone calls were unsolicited, unauthorized, and invasion of privacy and illegal under the TCPA. Cyber liability insurance covered the defense costs incurred to defend the TCPA complaint. Breach event costs covers mitigation costs and expenses incurred because of a privacy breach, security breach, or adverse media report, including legal expenses, public relations expenses, advertising expenses, IT forensics expenses, and the cost to provide credit monitoring and identity theft assistance to affected individuals. An insured moves to new offices, and during the move, several laptops and computers are stolen. One of the laptops contained personal information, including social security numbers of over 36,000 customers. Cyber liability insurance covered forensics expenses, legal fees, and notification expenses. BrandGuard covers loss of net profit incurred as a direct result of an adverse media report or notification to affected individuals following a security breach or privacy breach. After reporting a data breach to state officials, a dispensary was featured in a series of news reports about data breaches impacting local businesses. One report accounted specific details of the breach and the owner's response to the incident. The owner experienced significant downturn in business due to the news reports. Cyber liability insurance reimbursed the owner for the demonstrated loss of net profit resulting from the media report. System failure. This covers two things. One, reasonable and necessary amounts incurred to recover and or replace electronic data that is compromised, damaged, lost, erased, corrupted, or stolen. And two, business income loss and interruption expenses incurred due to an unplanned outage, interruption, failure, suspension, or degradation of service of an insured computer system, including any such incident caused by a hacking attack. Here we have an insured's computer system, which was infected with a virus that caused the system to be down for 2 days. The virus also caused the loss of data stored on the system, including the company's client database. Cyber insurance paid $22,000 for the cost to restore the system and the lost data. Cyber extortion covers ransom monies and associated costs and expenses incurred due to a cyber extortion threat, including ransomware. The owner of a dispensary discovered that a hacker had gained unauthorized access to the store's computer network and installed ransomware. The virus encrypted files and important data stored on the owner's network, and the perpetrator demanded a ransom be paid in Bitcoin to regain access to the network. An IT forensic specialist was retained and determined the threat to be credible. Cyber insurance covered the ransom and expenses incurred, totaling more than $20,000. Reward expenses. Coverage for reasonable amounts paid to an informant for information not otherwise available, which leads to the arrest and conviction of a person or group responsible for a privacy breach, security breach, system failure, cyber extortion threat, financial fraud, telecommunications fraud, or a phishing attack. A hacker used malware to seize control of an insured's computer system. When the insured store manager attempted to access a file, a message appeared on the computer screen instructing them to pay a ransom Bitcoin in order to regain control of the system. The next day, the store manager received a call from an informant who offered to provide information about the person responsible for the attack in exchange for reward. The insured agreed to pay a $10,000 reward, and the information provided by the informant subsequently led to the arrest and conviction of the hacker responsible for the attack. Cyber liability insurance covered the $10,000 reward. Court attendance cost. Coverage for reasonable costs incurred to attend court arbitration, mediation, or other legal proceedings or hearings as a witness in a claim covered under the policy. The owner of a clinic, again, pulled images from a Google Images web search and used it on the center's website and online promotional material. The copyright holder of the image was able to locate the website and promotional material and sued for copyright infringement. The lawsuit demanded removal of the image and compensatory damages. In an effort to resolve the matter, the owner was required to attend mediation sessions over the course of several days. Cyber liability insurance reimbursed the owner for her actual loss of earnings and reasonable costs and fees she incurred to attend the mediation. As you can see from this claim, it's very similar to the multimedia claim. And this also illustrates how one claim can actually trigger multiple insuring agreements. Cybercrime, loss of money or securities incurred due to financial fraud, telecommunications fraud, including utility fraud and phishing fraud. A business owner discovered a discrepancy between the store's accounting software and bank statements. After further investigation, it was discovered that a malicious actor posing as the owner had changed the banking information on the store's credit card processor and rerouted approximately $8,000 to a different account belonging to the malicious actor. Upon discovery, the owner reported the incident to the bank. The bank conducted an investigation and it was determined that the funds could not be retrieved. Cyber insurance covered the $8,000 financial loss. Okay, we're going to go into just kind of a general overview of the claims handling process. In conjunction with Cannasure and TOPA, all cyber liability insurance claims are handled by TMHCC's experienced in-house claims department with access to expert attorneys in every state. We establish clear protocols and liaise with Cannasure and TOPA staff and agents to enhance the relationship with your insureds. TMHCC services all claims-related needs for policyholders and agents and manages all third-party vendors for cyber liability claims, including legal advisors, IT forensics, customer notification, and PR or communications firms. So basically, a Cannasure insured would report a cyber loss just like any other claim. They would report it directly to Cannasure, and then the claims are forwarded to TMHCC, and TMHCC has a single point of contact for that insured, and that single point of contact will walk them through the whole claims process from start to finish and maintain consistent communication, coordinate that communication with the Cannasure and their policyholders. Now, we understand it's not always easy to market cyber coverage, and that's why we put together 6 simple steps to make it easier for you to start that conversation with your insureds. Here they are. So let's break it down step by step. Number 1, discuss data storage usage and systems. Asking simple questions like, where is your data or your personally identifiable information specifically? Where is that stored? Is it backed up? If so, is it secured or is it encrypted? And also, who has access to that data? Step number 2, discussing business interruption. Asking a question like, what would happen if your network went down? Helps the insured visualize a situation where they can no longer operate their business and how that would affect their livelihood. It's also important to review the Cannasure cyber insurance coverage solutions. For instance, system failure includes data recovery and business income loss and interruption expenses. Cyber extortion covers ransomware attacks. Breach event costs includes IT forensics expenses. Step number 3, identifying the number of customer records at risk. Breaking down the potential cost of a breach in simple terms helps the insured understand their potential exposure. The cost per record depends on the extent of the breach. The more information that is breached, the more expensive the notification cost per record becomes. On average, notification costs alone can range from $10 to $30 per record. Step number 4, explain the cost of a breach. Breach expenses and the consequences live on well beyond the incident and the corrective or preventative actions taken. There are short-term and long-term ramifications, and all of them add up in terms of continued financial cost, and sometimes even brand equity and business income loss. Step number 5, review the most common causes of breaches and network outages. Educating your customer on the most common causes of a breach may help them to avoid a breach in the future. And lastly, step number 6, introduce them to the Cannasure cyber insurance coverage. Presenting the Cannasure coverage solutions is the key to success here. That concludes our presentation, and we are now going to open it up for questions.